Hello everyone, welcome to the 7th update of the Daredevil Born Again series. Last time, I shared how Matt once again returned to the streets as the masked vigilante, Daredevil, and saved White Tiger's niece from the clutches of the twisted murderer, Muse. However, Muse managed to escape amidst the chaos. The scene shifts to Kingpin, gazing out his office window. His two assistants approach. The male assistant comments on the city's public image, while the other assistant mentions concerns from voters. But all Kingpin sees is fear. He believed the people of New York are living in terror because of the recent murders, and he views this as a failure in his duty as mayor. However, his assistant reassures him, saying he's done a great job. He also mentions that White Tiger's niece survived Muse's attack. Kingpin is surprised to hear this, but when he learns that Daredevil has returned, he pauses in deep thought. After a moment of silence, he dismisses everyone from the room. Daredevil's return forces him to reflect on many things. Meanwhile, at the hospital, White Tiger's niece awakens from a coma, haunted by the shadow of Daredevil. At the same time, Matt is at home, taking a shower, his body bloodied and bruised. The sight deeply worries Heather, who shares the apartment with him. She gently kisses his wounds, and they embrace. After an intimate moment, Heather asks Matt how he got injured. Matt avoids the question, making her even more concerned. She studies his injuries and realizes they weren't sustained in a typical accident. This points to a self-destructive pattern. Matt finally admits he's confused, feeling like the tragedy has blurred the lines between reality and illusion. Everything from his past now feels uncertain. Heather hugs him and calmly says, "This isn't a war, it's a process, and I'll go through it with you." Matt is touched by her words. Cut to the next day. Matt arrives at a law firm but is immediately confronted by Jerry. He accuses him of breaking his promise to stop being Daredevil. Now back as Daredevil and expresses his frustration. Kirsten McDuffie tries to chime in, but Matt shuts her down abruptly. Inside the meeting room, Jerry tells Matt the police are following the wrong leads, and if he keeps going like this, he could become Muse's next victim. Matt doesn't deny the risk, but insists that law enforcement is clueless, and someone must take action. Heather accuses him of tearing apart the piece he's managed to rebuild in his life. They argue, and in the end, Jerry tells Matt he can no longer support him. He pleads with him to stay, but he walks out, leaving Matt standing there in sorrow. Elsewhere, Kingpin meets with a former gang leader to discuss Daredevil's return. Kingpin believes Daredevil's presence could actually be useful. If he captures Muse, it would benefit the city. But the gang leader scoffs, reminding Kingpin that Daredevil once destroyed the criminal empire he spent a decade building. He justifies his actions, saying that although his empire was illegal, it brought jobs and stability to the lower class. In his eyes, he was the real hero, while Daredevil was the villain who disrupted it all. Daredevil, he claims, destroyed the fragile balance and is responsible for turning the underworld into chaos. Despite his anger, Kingpin remains composed. He tells the man that he's no longer the criminal mastermind of the past. He's the mayor now. With the power and resources at his disposal, he can protect the city legally. The gang leader, amused by Kingpin's new ideology, respects his ability to see things differently. Kingpin assures him, "I will deal with those who threaten this city, my way." Matt then visits a hospital to investigate Muse's background. He speaks with a source who is initially reluctant to talk, assuming the police won't do anything. But Matt hints that someone else, clearly referring to himself, will handle it if they don't. The informant finally opens up, revealing that Muse isn't just a killer. He's also an obsessive artist who paints across the city. Back at Muse's hideout, the police discover disturbing portraits scattered across the walls. One officer also finds a peculiar brand of paint that could be a vital clue. The scene shifts to an industrial zone, where Vanessa Fisk meets privately with the former gang leader. She urges him to stop stirring conflict, but the man arrogantly turns the tables, blaming her and Fisk for the current unrest. He reminisces about how, under Vanessa's management, the underworld ran smoothly. He argues that Fisk's return destroyed all the order she had established. He proposes an alliance with Vanessa to eliminate Fisk. Shockingly, Vanessa seems shaken, and even says she'll consider cooperating. Meanwhile, Heather is treating a young patient, a fan who previously met her at a signing event. During their session, he tells her he's been having recurring dreams of his 8th birthday. His parents had thrown him a party. Yet somehow, even though he was there, it felt like no one noticed him. Heather gently asks if he feels pressure from his parents. The boy says no. He loves him very much. At the same time, Vanessa contacts the police to make a report. Muse may actually be a man named Batip Cooper. He analyzed the paint sample he had previously collected and discovered it was from a rare and expensive brand. Only 2 stores in the city sold it, and just 12 people had purchased it in the past 2 weeks. After checking the records, only one name stood out, Batip Cooper, who hadn't been located yet. This same Benitez had a troubling history. He was detained several times before the age of 15 and was a Taekwondo master who trained under a renowned martial arts teacher. But 3 months later, that master was found dead in Bastip's house. The whole incident was quietly covered up by Bastip's parents. Meanwhile, Benitez casually mentions that he studied Taekwondo, and his teacher was the very same master who had died. It becomes increasingly clear that Heather is a fan of Muse, and Bastip's expression subtly shifts. Batip begins talking about his desire to become an artist, crediting Heather for inspiring him. Heather responds politely at first, but Batip cuts her off. He says he drew inspiration from Heather's research on masks. Batip believes a mask allows him to become his true self and finally be recognized by the city. As he speaks, blood trickles from his nostrils. At this point, Heather realizes that Batip has been involved in the recent string of murders. Batip then boldly declares that he's taking over from here. Heather, confused, can only comply, though the realization that Batip is actually Muse begins to sink in. Heather attempts to stay calm, even allowing Batip to wipe his nose, but his fear betrays him. Bastip's expression grows more manic. He uses his own blood to paint Muse's face on paper, then turns to Heather, exclaiming, "This is the real me!" Heather, terrified, tries to reason with him, but Batip remains eerily calm. He says he knows Benitez wants to escape, but it's useless. Sure enough, when Heather tries to flee, Batip knocks her out cold and pins him against the wall. Elsewhere, Jerry learns that Daredevil has gone off on his own. He begins to suspect that Matt is hiding something and expresses his desire to be trusted and join the team properly. Back at the police station, after reviewing clues, Daredevil heads to a crime scene alone. Based on Matt's earlier guidance, he carefully examines the paintings on the walls. He quickly notices that many of them seem to reference the same person, Matt's real girlfriend. Daredevil realizes the danger too late. Suddenly, Officer Paul rushes in, but Matt doesn't explain. Instead, he knocks Paul out and rushes to the clinic. A while later, Kingpin wakes up to a call from Paul, who informs him that Muse's next target is Matt's girlfriend. Kingpin is momentarily stunned, but then a plan forms in his mind. He stops Paul from issuing a warrant and instead assembles a reaction team to intercept Muse. Meanwhile, Heather awakens from unconsciousness. Her hands and feet are bound. Batip, fully embracing the Muse persona, hovers nearby. Heather calls him by his real name, but this only enrages him. Muse insists he's not Batip, but Muse, and ignores all pleas. He pulls out a knife and slices Heather's arm, letting the blood flow. Muse is elated, but then police sirens blare outside. The operation is exposed. Rather than fleeing, Muse escalates. He opens a paint can, then pulls out a pistol. Heather realizes she's about to be killed. She taunts Muse, calling him a coward hiding behind a mask. The provocation works. Muse becomes more agitated. Heather tries to break free, but fails. Still, she manages to push Muse to the ground. Muse fights back, and the two engage in a brutal fight. Daredevil breaks a window, firing Muse's pistol first. The police, hearing the commotion, realize Daredevil is inside and storm the building. The fight continues. Muse, though vicious, is no match for Daredevil. As Muse lunges, Daredevil fires a grappling hook into his shoulder and pulls him back. They continue to struggle, but Muse manages a sliding kick across Daredevil's legs. A small reversal. However, Daredevil regains control, pins Muse, and shoots him. Muse collapses. Daredevil grabs a nearby pistol and fires again, this time fatally. But the toll is high. Heather passes out from blood loss. When the police burst in, only Heather and Muse remain. Heather is unconscious, and Muse is confirmed dead on the spot. Later, at the scene, Paul explains to the team that Muse died before they arrived. But another voice interjects, Kingpin himself. He offers a different version, that he arrived in time to stop Muse's heart attack and was the one who killed him. Paul quickly agrees with this revised narrative. But another officer points out that Daredevil called for emergency services, not just for himself, but for Muse. This sparks suspicion. Paul catches Kingpin's gaze and mocks him for the inconsistency. But Kingpin suddenly opens his eyes and calmly says he doesn't care about the past. However, If Paul doesn't drop the report and stick to the official story, he'll face serious consequences. It's a quiet threat, but clear. Later that night, Heather wakes up in the hospital. Matt sits beside her and reassures her. Heather expresses her joy that Muse is dead. Heather, still shaken, explains she had no other choice. Matt is surprised, but accepts it. Heather didn't understand what was going on, but Heather said she recognized him. She claimed she heard Daredevil calling her name before she passed out. It seemed she was starting to suspect Matt's true identity. But this time, Matt quietly turned on the TV. Just then, news about the Muse incident was broadcast. Kingpin took all the credit for the takedown, praising the reaction team. He publicly stated that he would never allow a masked man to hurt New York again. Holding up Muse's mask, he declared victory. Time passed. Vanessa was alone at home. She made a call and revealed someone's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Vanitas, who received the message, drove to a nearby restaurant. He saw Kingpin sitting alone and assumed he was there for dinner. He prepared to assassinate him. But as soon as he pulled out his gun, someone hidden in the shadows struck. A shot rang out, killing the male assistant instantly. Then, Kingpin casually thanked the male assistant and turned to Vanessa, asking if she wanted something to eat. It became clear this was all set up. Vanessa and Kingpin had planned everything from the start. And just like that, the episode came to an end. This episode featured some truly intense fight scenes, all executed with incredible choreography and visual impact. However, if there's one downside, it's that Muse's exit felt a bit rushed. But in episode 2 of Peeing, Muse seems to appear again, which got me thinking maybe Muse didn't really die. In the comics, Muse is a one-man operation. His unique ability is to manipulate people's senses, causing them to doubt what they see and feel. He can distort his presence, almost like erasing himself from the world. Remember the scene where he talks about his 8th birthday? That moment hinted at his awakening abilities. Even as a child, he felt invisible during that party. So it's entirely possible that when Muse suffered those injuries and the police assumed he died, he may have used his sensory manipulation to fake death, then quietly revived himself elsewhere. If that's true, then in Season 2, Daredevil may face the true version of Muse. Stronger, more refined, and fully in control of his powers. Daredevil's radar senses might be completely nullified. No doubt, Muse will become the most terrifying enemy yet. But for now, this is just speculation. There are still 2 episodes left in the first season. Let's see how the story wraps up. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. See you next time.